Hello, and today we'll be playing the newest update of Devil's Gambit. So, I want to mention that at the end of the last update, I said that during that sex scene between Hector and Cargon, that I thought that Cargon was actually Wanskai, because he acted too much like Wanskai in that love scene they had. But I went back and looked at some of the earlier parts of the update and the update before that, and now I think that is Hector. I mean, that is Cargon. I think it's Cargon, but you got Wanskai with him, or Ryan, kind of having him, instructing him as he goes along with it. So I believe it was really Cargon the whole time talking like that, but you had Ryan or Cargon, you had like Ryan or Wanskai directing him the whole time, telling him what to do and how and what to say to Hector and how to say it. I think that's what I believe now. That's what it was. It's just Ryan, helping Cargon while having sex with Hector. All right, so I think this is going to I think things are going to pick up in this update, because I think this is about the end of an arc, and I think there's one more coming up. The mountains rumble. Underneath them, the sky in the valley blinks, countless eyes slowly opening and closing in intervals, almost like a coordinated dance. I stare down at it, enthralled every thought walks away before having a chance to fully form. Then I feel it, a pressure on my face, my limbs aching, a voice calls out for me, and I turn around. Dad chastises me, saying we need to hurry to the mansion or else we'll be late. But I don't want to go. I turn to walk away, perhaps up to the mountain or down the valley, but every step I take is as though I'm knee deep in mud. Dad complains, but I suck his voice under the surface and keep going. The lights grow more intense as I walk up to the valley. Maybe one's car is there waiting for me. I wanted to see him again, but no. A bit further ahead, I run into Cargon instead, who has black and white fur just like me. One's car is the color of the earth. What are you up to, Hector? Gonna take a dip? He asks with a nonchalant smile. There's something off about him, but I can't quite put my finger on what, and I don't care. I'm just too happy to see him. We keep walking, me staring at his back as we go. The flannel is the blue one. That is a blue one this time. With a chuckle, I tease him about Tracer needing to give him two shirts for his birthday. Kaka looked surprised for a moment, and then a bit sad. Slow as my movement may be, I managed to wrap him in a hug, like I've done many times before. Have I been here already? In the mountain that is also the valley flows a river, just like the one in One Eye's forest. Cargon sits in front of the running water, contemplating whether to jump or not. The fire-branched trees look at us as if in anticipation of what will happen next. Finally, Cargon shoots me a glance and grins. Want to see a devil? With a grin, he removes the flannel and hops into the water. Then he turns towards me, holding one hand out. I feel his presence all around me, omnipresent. I touch my neck, but I can't breathe. I've lost track of the wolf among the turbulent waters. It doesn't matter how much I kick and try to swim up, the current sinks me further and further. Wolves begin drumming from the bottom of the abyss, and as I descend, the images are seared into my skin. The forest's long fingers encroach on the pristine wall in a woven circle to scrape and dig for the bone underneath. The wind sends the trees into a full rut as drums reverberate furiously like the steps of titans. Birds take off from the treetops and fly to a piece of the sky that has fallen off. They look back at me with stars in their beaks. The river flows downhill and then uphill as a valley turns into a mountain and one sky into an eye. In his eyes is a badger with white and black fur just like mine, tinted red with a hint of purple by justice. That's not my face, it's the face that created me, forged in love, fire, and venomous spite. Kanakan pulls me by the shoulder, raises his hand, and snaps his fingers. I wake up gasping for air. There's something on top of me, and it's heavy. Too heavy to move it, so I try to slip from under it instead, only to discover I'm being held in place. After enough struggle, I manage to free myself and desperately fill my lungs with a mix of swelling wood, herbs, and faint hints of stew coming from downstairs. But there's more, earth and an aroma like the wood's morning breeze. Kanakan is still asleep in front of me. I see. I think I dug myself too deep under his armpit, or perhaps he pulled me closer in his sleep, and I began asphyxiating. Thank God I somehow didn't wake him up. It would be embarrassing. What time is it? Orwell already started cooking. With a sigh, I sink back into the bed. I follow the folds of fur going up Kanakan's shoulders and neck and to his face. He seems so at peace right now. He has since last night. From the moment he took my hand and pulled me away from the crowd, to be specific, but said peace also serves as a reminder that no matter how well he hides it, he's still hurting inside. What can I do for him? If I could muster the courage. Back button here. What can I do for him? If I could muster the courage, the coldness to betray Wanskai, would that change anything? No, the problem is Manuel, not the demon. If anything, telling him about Wanskai will only add another burden on his shoulders. It's the last thing I want. But perhaps being by his side, looking at his sleeping face, really is all I can do. Giving him this moment is all the help I can muster. It doesn't take long for the wolf to stir in his sleep, and soon he blinks as his eyes adjust themselves to the morning glow. Wordlessly, I huddle up to him, throwing one arm around him to pull myself closer. The wolf closes his eyes, holding me too. I stay there, my forehead pushed against his rising chest, feeling his heartbeat, his fingers run behind my ear in slow strokes. Don't fall back asleep now. My grip becomes tighter, fully intending to fall back asleep. Remember what we discussed last night, Hector? Yes, I do as told. Right, so. With an exaggerated sigh, I let go of Kanakan and roll onto my bed. The wolf smiles, and after scratching my ear some more, sits on the edge of the bed. His fluttering tail rubs itself against my belly. I wish we could just stay here all day, just you and me. That would be nice. Who knows? Maybe once this is over, we could share a morning like that. I watch him as he gets dressed. It's such a relaxing morning, yet as the stupor dissipates, a sort of determination shows in his face. Do you have plans today? Yes, I'll be pretty busy. I'm not sure I'll come here for dinner, actually. I suppose he'll be having put away the stalls and all else. Festivals are nice and all, but cleaning up afterwards is always such a chore. Mm-hmm. So I guess we don't get to see the festival then. We'll like to see it. He finishes putting on his shirt and looks out the window before turning to me. By the way, Hector, did you visit the Duke's mansion recently? I'm like taken aback by the sudden shift of topic and evaded by a sudden uneasiness as the memory of that day forcefully comes back. Indeed, did Ricardo tell you? No, I just wanted to ask you to stay away from there for a while. With the Inquisitor in town, it's not out of the question for Manuel's mood swings to reach new extremes. Not to mention the Inquisitor will probably be visiting him regularly. I'd rather you didn't cross his path so he can bother you. Yes, you don't have to tell me. I sit on the bed, throwing my arms in a long stretch and closing my eyes. Kakan takes the chance to sneak up on me and plant a kiss on my lips. With a chuckle, I grab his shoulders and return it. I really wish we had more time. Don't worry, Hector. If all goes well, this won't last much longer. You think so? Kakan nods and takes a step back. Well, I'll get going. I'll see you again soon. Sure. Good luck. As for me, I better get dressed and ready for work. I still have to eat breakfast too. It's funny, I don't think I was ever late to work during my first month, but come the leaf burning festival, and with it one sky's fire, I began struggling. To get to the hospital on time. It doesn't help that I seemingly never get moved from the morning shift. They think this time Kagan is the reason for my delay, but I have a feeling that head doctor will overlook it. God knows I've been doing my best to be punctual. However, when I walk into the hospital and the head doctor, who has been talking to Paulo up to that point, notices me, I see the severity in his eyes. He's been expecting me. Hector, you're finally here. Yes, sir. Is something the matter? Listen well. He clears his throat. Starting today, you're relieved of your duties in the hospital as well as of taking care of patients back in their homes. Huh? Why? What did I do? I really need the money, sir. How can I get you to reconsider? I knew you'd react this way. Stop yapping, son, and let me finish. His Grace wants you in a different job instead, one he thinks will make full use of your talents. His Grace? What could that be? Follow me, please. The line guides me to one of the rooms away from the medical wards, which would usually be reserved for operations. Instead, it's been refurbished with brewing equipment and cells filled with specimens. I approach the ladder, squinting at a dissected snake staring at me with empty sockets from behind the glass. Near it is a flask filled with an orange substance preserving a familiar purple weed. My sight travels down and stumbles upon a diagram, a study of a horned beast. But what almost makes my heart jump out of my throat is a sketch of its head. Eyes, so many eyes, and its cheeks, its horns, dripping from its awestruck mouth. With a hand on my chest, I turn to the head doctor. Where is all this? Your new study. Its Grace say you will be of more value investigating the valley's fauna than merely tending to the wolves. What brought this about? Did the news of me curing the dust viper venom with Manuel? It's the only thing that made sense to me, but that feels so long ago. How come he only heard about it now? Silverworth. Manuel doesn't involve himself with the town, preferring to remain secluded in his mansion. But Silverworth must be constantly exchanging information with him now, and must have told him about what I did. Curse that meddling Inquisitor. I don't know, sir. I don't consider myself cut for research. I'd rather keep treating people if only because That's my area of expertise. I believe His Grace must have seen you. I believe His Grace must have seen in you a boon, some talent you aren't aware of. Trust His judgment. You might surprise yourself. Not to mention that with this new job, you'll receive a hefty raise. This doesn't sit well with me, but think of Oban, Hector. Just because you found something resembling a home here, that doesn't mean you should forget about your roots. Even if Dad wasn't who you thought he was, there's no reason to forsake your first home. Have you already gotten what you wanted? Then what do you lose by giving me what I want while you're at it? Besides, it would be unwise to defy the Duke's will. Accept the job, Hector. My soul is wise as I take a deep breath, feeling like I'm about to choke. I hold it in for 2 seconds before letting it all out. Alright, I'll do it. I'm just not sure what His Grace expects from me, specifically. I don't think he intends to pay me to peruse useless material and stare at dissected animals all day. Did he mention what results he expects? To begin with, a full cure for the dust viper venom, one that treats both symptoms, flesh and nerves. I see. I suppose that's to be expected. The lion gestures towards an iron box sitting near the corner. And there you'll find some samples for study. I figure I don't need to tell you to be careful when you're working with it. No, sir. Now, I'll leave to acquaint yourself with your new study. Come see me if you need anything. Yes, sir, thank you. As the head doctor closes the door behind him, I scan the room before walking up to that iron box. With hesitation, I take the lid and lift it, just enough to see some light in it and to see its contents. I was half expecting more dead snakes, this time with a dead gaze instead of nothing but no. All I find inside are tiny flasks filled with pitch black venom and a pleasant cold. It would remind me of Autumn's breath in any other situation. I removed the lid completely to inspect the box more carefully. A woven circle is drawn on one of the inner walls. Next to it, a hook suspends a small yellow crystal, energized ember, most likely. It seems undercharged, but it's probably on purpose so that the circle doesn't outright freeze the samples. I'll have to be careful with when recharging it. Placing the lid back in its place, I sit down on my new desk, absent-mindedly staring at the torches and flasks scattered around. What will I do next? Of course, take some samples and analyze them, distill them, and take them apart over and over again until I understand what makes them, how life force reads them. I'm not completely sure the dust viper venom can be cured, but if I could treat the nerves symptom, then it shouldn't be impossible. It'll be harder all by myself, but I'll have as much time as I'll need. These little contractions here kind of trip me up, It'll and owl. It's kind of easy for me when they just spell it out. It will and I will. It is worrisome that the I's influence is in these little critters because there might be a component to them that I might just be unable to understand, and that would make developing an antidote much more difficult. Remember, Hector, the dark god can be understood, and it can be counteracted. Even the wolves of Old 9 managed to come up with their lullabies to put it to sleep. If it starts getting away, well, then that'll be another mystery for you to solve in search of a cure, that is all. In fact, don't you already have a way to interact with the dark god's essence? My eyes open wide, and I jump from the chair and slam the table with my open hands. Why did it take me so long to realize this? But of course, I saw it back when Wanskar and I laid together in the old settlement, and ever since I've seen it pressed against my nose every time I feel the cold seeping back into my damp room in Orwell's nest. So well I know it. that I could sketch it from memory. I frantically look around for a journal. I see the paper. I'm not gonna anything, afraid that the memory of it alongside this realization will slip from my consciousness any second now. Oh, you're such a fool, Hector. Such a fool. After months' consideration, Bridget pushes forward with her work, tearing into Lord Amakado's backline. The lion ponders the chessboard carefully and considering the constellation of pieces that has arranged itself around his king. So far, he's had the advantage, even having the leisure to warn the wolfers whenever she was about to commit a fatal mistake. In just one more move, he'll have captured her king. However, what Blizzard lacks in experience, she makes up for it in bravery and quick wits. Rather than going on the defensive, she has gambled her remaining pieces in her final stand. You truly live up to my expectations, Blizzard. Wonderful move. No need to be humble, Your Grace. I'm well aware I'm cornered. This gamble is my last way out. Certainly. Amakato strokes his goatee, while Blizzard has him in check, but it's but a matter of time before he reaches his victory. He still holds the advantage and should be able to fight off the pieces cornering his king until he's able to perform his finishing move. The woman's face is still and cold like stone as she observes her work. Lord Amakato takes his tower and knocks down Blizzard's rock. It is only then that she smiles, and what a devil smile it is. Sorry, Your Grace, but this wasn't a gamble, but a gambit. The lion chuckles, but his eyes open with realization. Silly girl, a gambit is an opening move. To the loser goes the petty corrections, and to the winner the bitter, humble look on the noble's face. I close the manuscript and rub my chin, perhaps the same way Lord Amakato did right before his defeat. The crushing weight of Finbar and Erin's gazes falls on me as they await my opinion. Finbar is supposed to be the nervous one, but the expectation of having someone insightful to say is crushing me right now. I don't know much about chess, but it's interesting. Even if it's just a game, I think Blizzard is very brave to defeat him like that. If I did that to Manuel, I'd be afraid of my head going flying not much later. Really, I think that part where the game was trite. Oh, and then, not this again. Why? Why do they need to play chess? Couldn't it be something more interesting like 7 Little Kingdoms? 7 Little Kingdoms take 7 days per session, Finbar. And it's a Ranayan game, and a noble would find the themes distasteful, so no, they're not playing that. There's something else. Besides, chess takes just as long, if not more. Finbar shakes his head and looks at me. That's a lie, and he knows it well. We played a few rounds while I was watching this scene. But that was us. Snowball has told me in cases where games between lions went for as long as a whole month. That's crazy. They must be playing on a whole other level. Either that or they're really slow in the head. Anyway, let's leave that scene aside. What do you think of the rest, Hector? After that whole arc of Lady Faith trying to kill Blizzard out of jealousy only for her to fall into that moving pit in the valley and die horribly, so much has happened that it feels like Conley has taken a supportive role. Right, he hasn't shown up in a while, hasn't he? I see the corner of Finbar's mouth rise behind his mustache, and this time he's the one wagging his finger at us. I haven't forgotten about Conley. He still has a large role to play. In fact, if you pay enough attention, you see the signs of what's to come have already been laid out. You're making shit up. It's just a little faith for a priest, friend. Come read again. I'm sure you'll notice them sooner or later. By the way, is it necessary for Lady Faith's death to be so grisly? I feel a bit squeamish reading about the land octopus. Incidentally, It was by reading today's draft that I learned what a land octopus is, a monster that burrows into the walls of the moving pits and survives by preying on anything that falls into them. And if Finbar's story is to be trusted, it is a most terrible fate. I figured people would appreciate the realism. I like that part. Why am I not surprised? By speaking of the valley, I have new today. Finbar leans closer with interest, but I can already tell from Irenen's look that he doesn't like bringing up the valley. I can only hope he will change his mind once he hears what I have to say. A naive hope. At best, the old man's face only sours further as I explain my new job. Not even the prospect of a few cure for the dust viper venom brings him a shred of joy. The old blacksmith is beaming at the news, at least. Oh, that's great, Hector. I'm happy for you. Oregon would have been proud. I bet he would have. But heed my words, Badger. What good will come out of this? Is it truly wise selling the valley secrets to the Duke? He's not doing anything of the sort, Irenen. Get off his case, will you? I don't see how this is different from me finding that cure for the dust viper venom. And you approve of that. Yes, but you were trying to save a life, not digging around for secrets so you can trade them for gold. And even back then, I suspected that was a bad omen. I prayed that my distrust was unfounded, that your curiosity would end alongside your test, and it did. But now that you have this new job, who knows what somebody as obstinate as you will stumble upon. As much as I wish he wasn't in town, you should pay close attention to Chris's words, because it's people like you that he warned us about. By God, Hector, heed his warnings before you doom us all. And then that Finbar decides it's enough, and putting forward excuses that his anger will only impede his recovery. He offers Irenen his shoulder, the priest house half-heartedly holding on to Finbar as the blacksmith helps him to his feet. He doesn't take his sight off me for a single second until they turn away to walk towards the guest room. I just stay seated, digging into my pants with my fingers still feeling the weight of Irenen's gaze. Finbar returns after a few minutes, looking too tired for the time of the day. All of a sudden, his words come out almost as a whisper. Forgive him for that outburst, Irenen. Forgive him for that outburst, Hector. Irenen means well, but he carries much pain and resentment, especially wherever the Duke is involved. It's almost imperceptible, but I notice a trace of shame in his words I can't quite explain. Don't trouble yourself. I'm used to being on the receiving end of Irenen's sermons. He's always so on edge about the valley too, but legends are legends. I say if we could get rid of those infernal snakes, that's reason for celebration, but curing their venom is the next big thing. The next best thing. One kind's voice condemning the rules forgetfulness echoes through my mind. I know Irenen doesn't reproach me just because of his apparent habit of criticizing me, but I have no intention of revealing to the Duke anything that isn't a strictly medical discovery. He's my employer, yes, but I'm a doctor, not a researcher. I won't begin acting as the latter, no matter how much gold he promises me. Oh well, I think I better go sit with Irenen. I don't want him to think I hold this against him, you know. I'll get going then. Suddenly, my ears perked up, and I reached into my belt bag. I almost forgot. Can you look at this? The old man squints at the collection of circles, woven in unknown runes alike, and lines drawn on the page of my journal. He plays with his mustache, searching in the archive of his memory for the meaning behind the sigil, but soon he realizes it's useless. Curious sigil, this rune here, is woven and represents the earth, the soil. This one has many meanings, but generally alludes to the abundance of something or to seeds. Everything else I can't recognize, however. Where do you find it? I have it in Ernan's temple one time, and I felt drawn to it. I can't explain why. Thankfully, he's too focused on the page to look at my face and possibly see my lie written all over it. The both of us can feel he's at the cusp of a realization. Suddenly, he snaps his fingers, and letting his arms fall, he approaches the halfway door. For a second, I think he's about to look for Ernan, but he stops by the door and crouches. I knew it looked familiar. Come here. I take 1, 2, 3 steps closer and look at the keyhole, or rather at the iron disc delimiting it. On either side are 2 characters engraved into it almost as if they were initials. But they are not that. They are not even letters, but runes. It holds a reason that the keyhole could work as a sigil then, but Finbar denies it, explaining it's the mark used by one-eyed blacksmiths since time immemorial. The locks had carried those runes since before his grandfather was born, and they most likely go much farther back, and since things have always been this way, his family continued the tradition. After returning to Arrow's nest and waiting for Kai for 2 hours, a period during which many other wolves recognize me and with thankful smiles invite me to have a drink, I head upstairs and kneel in front of my room's door. It's here, and in the neighboring doors too, the same runes have been engraved all over town, right under my nose. Upon placing my finger on it and infusing it with magic, I see that Finbar is right. There's no reaction at all. No matter the position of the door, or whether it's locked or not, no attempt at activating it works. Scratching my ear in resignation and confusion, I retreat into my room for the night. There I light my lamp, and from under the pillow I produce Wanskai's loincloth. Sitting on the desk, I compare the sigil painted on it with the one I scribbled when I had that epiphany at the hospital. Not because I don't trust my memory, but for the peace of mind of making absolutely sure. It's the same. I put the loincloth away and draw on the next page of my journal the apparent sigil on the doors. I don't know if the keyhole is a part of it, but I included it just in case. Finally, I scribbled the sigil I'd seen in the medallion in Manuel's cabinet. All of them share the same rune, 4 strokes curling into something like a number 6 or a little flame. Rather arbitrarily, deciding that indeed must be a flame, I recline on a chair and cross my arms, trying to make sense of this. Out of the 3, Wanskai's sigil is the most complex, with dozens of runes and long strokes, clustered together like pieces of a large contraption. Meanwhile, the other 2 are just the little flame and the one other rune enclosed in a circle, simplicity itself. Not that it helps, since, according to Finbar, none of the runes are woven in origin. That's why it never crossed his mind that he might have been embedding sigils into the town's doors. Just now I tried the door sigil, and it did nothing. It could be that one-eyed blacksmiths have made small mistakes or alterations over time, and with its original form lost, it doesn't work anymore. But even leaving that aside, just because it became a tradition to put the sigil on doors, that doesn't mean it has anything to do with them. As long as the runes are a mystery, anything from the environment, the material where they are carved, to the amount of magic applied could be an issue. However, if I speculate blindly, I'll never get anywhere. Is there anything more concrete that I can latch onto? I'm about to get in bed when I recall Wanskai explaining that his sigil acted as a countermeasure to the eye's influence. He called it a lullaby. Back in the hospital, I thought it would be useful to have something that can detect and counteract the dark god, but there might be more to it than even thought. After a while, if the door and the medallion circles both still wounds with it, could that mean that they too are lullabies? And as I'm asking myself this, I close my eyes and fall into a deep, tired slumber. We wait, and the shadows cast by the moonlight, huddled on the ground, looking out to the streets around the temple. Our ears swivel to catch distant footsteps. A drunkard and his wife returning home, both smelling of ale, cheering loudly. A group of four, no 5 children, playing with a ball until a mother calls them home. In the temple, flickering light seeps out from the boarded-up windows. It moves from room to room as the invaders go on with their nightly rituals. This would be boring were it not so similar to hunting. I even feel the weight of our bow on our back and my fingers twitch, ready to draw the string. We make our move when the candle in the temple goes out and the streets go quiet. A second is all we need to inspect the temple's doors. The me on the other side swims up to the surface with his hundreds and hundreds of eyes. This one is the same. Our ancestors were a crafty bunch, leaving behind their magic and tools so that they are within our reach, but hidden from those ignorant of our knight's purpose. Hundreds and hundreds of eyes look up to me from the depths, simmering like hummingbird feathers. Even if somebody suspected something's up, replacing the door is such a bother. Moonlight shines down on the depths of our mind, and I see the hundreds and hundreds of sharp jaws and sharper claws reaching up to the lock. Unlock it. I focus and let it flow. It's like second nature. The room is clear in my mind's eye, or as are all the spells I've inherited and learned as a person, and the person is the thing flowing through us. The eye, or maybe something like that, the summons and their ghosts in the tree's roots, the echoing cries of those the flash turn into silhouettes, the valley's light flourishing and twisting, becoming one before becoming two. The eye slumbering, steering, the dream is cracking. The door unlocks itself, we slip in unnoticed and lock it from the inside. The storeroom. But we stop for a moment. We have to as we look around to see through the changes the invaders have done to the place. Behind their furniture, lying paraphernalia and flags, it's still the same. It's still our home, if it feels foreign and distant, like a charcoal drawing and memory drained of color. The me on the other side and all his eyes remain paralyzed in place while I'm the one dragging our body to our goal, to the storeroom, and then to the old fireplace there. Once more I use our magic, opening the entrance to the temple's secret hideout. I place Caddy's light thing on the table. The cramped hideout is the only remaining place where the eye's wound still is proud. Where the eye's wound still in proud display, despite the dust and cobwebs in the immediate urge to sneeze. I blow my nose and wave my hand in front of my face. The bow I leave resting on top of the table where Dad once worked his jewels and metals. He taught the one before us, who I still am unsure if he was a sibling, or simply yet another parent, all about how symbols not only have meaning but sometimes remember, even better than the flesh. No one will ever find us here. We'll be hidden in plain sight. We can also easily reach the tower from the storeroom staircase. That'll be a good vantage point. I don't think we'll be able to cook anything here, though. Probably not. It would be too risky to cook it in the forest, too. Several might notice the smoke and want to check it out. We could always help ourselves with what Orwell leaves in this kitchen. He won't even feel that we're gone. This is good. I can barely contain myself from tap dancing, but for now there's nothing for me to do except lie down on the cot and rest for the moment. The meat on the other side is already at it again. He rearranges the little fist with a methodical cadence of dad when he saved silver. I look down below the surface to see all the fists, all his sharp and cold-blooded thoughts, with their slitted eyes and sharp teeth shining under the moonlight. Some thoughts swim together in big groups. Some drift along and never stop, and some hide in the silt deep down in the darkest depths, but they all have killing jaws. The meat on the other side scares me sometimes. When he reaches out to me past the threshold and we hold hands for a second, I know all their names and what they mean, how they fit together, and sometimes they form swarms. More teeth, more eyes, more bite than anything the valley has ever created. They take shapes. The shape itself comes alive. And for a moment, it's like he could make another me. But I'm here. So how can he do that? How can I be there at the same time? Will the little Ryan and his side one day give back everything he gave me? Is that really me? One time when I reached into him, I could see it for a moment. Caddy uses the little Ryan on his side to see the future, and there are other people there too. There's a little Hector, a little Tracer, and I see a little fireman forming too. Sometimes he picks up the little people and spends a day looking at them, seeing how the fists react to each other. He makes new fists too, and adds them to the groups until they look just like the real deal. Sometimes I try talking to the little Hector on Caddy's side, but it's not the same. Even when Caddy plays along, it's just not the same. And I saw another thing too. In those dark, slitted, cold, terrifying eyes and all the hundreds and hundreds of teeth, there was love. Cadigan doesn't realize it's love because it's something he gave me. It's mine. But it's still there, and at the same time, I wonder how that's possible, and I become paralyzed because I see that love is not a single thing, like to be born or something so utterly terrifying. Being loved is as scary as it is necessary. What are you thinking? It scares me. I don't know why he does the things he does. Caddy, why do you tell Hector that you're a demon? Why do you want him to know, and why do it then? That's kind of what I'm wondering. I look down again and see all the fists stopping, drifting, then jerking in a new direction. The sign. I look down again and see all the fists stopping, drifting, then jerking in a new direction. The light shines in their eyes. They see me. They know I'm looking, and in a blink of an eye, they take new, more inscrutable shapes. I don't want to live a lie anymore. But that's not all there is to it. Caddy's mind creates new shapes once, twice, thrice. Each one is something he thinks of saying, but chooses not to. I reach my hand below the surface and he pulls me in. All at once. All that is fair and just comes from the truth. No good built on falsehoods will last. The truth is our only way out, and it is on our side. All that applies both to Hector and Renai. But that thought vanishes before I can even grasp it. There's a kind of love in being understood, in being known, and being seen. and that cannot exist in a world of lies. They look at me, all the eyes and hundreds of fists look me dead in the eye, but it lasts only a second and it all snaps away. But Hector can't understand it, Caddy. The fist will crawl. It hurts more than Kagan realizes, more than he can feel. Truth is a path. All the fists look up at me with their unblinking eyes, and it's late, Ryan. We have big plans for tomorrow. Can't we visit Hector? Not tonight. We have to be stealthy. But if all goes well, it should be good for you to see him 2 nights from now. Delightful. Now I really can't keep myself from tapping my hooves against the floor. Kakan susses me, urging me to sleep. We hide in plain sight and wait. Atop the temple's tower, from which we see all who cross the center square, this is a perfect place to watch out for the firemen. The wind is blowing towards us. We'll be able to catch the scent well before we can see him. We must always remain downwind of him. We don't know how well his sense of smell is. Just like hunting will teach her. Yes, this is a hunt, and we're in this together. I curl, calm my breath, and stay still, very still, focus on the magic, on the sigil, on the spell flowing through our hands, and back to ourselves on the eyes' languid essence of its deep slumber. The songs, the lullaby, the ballad, the prayers are nigh. The wicked's rest must now be made eternal. Return of Renai's love, my soul desire. I mutter the lyrics under my breath, and the me that breathes hums along. O brother of my soul, branch of our tree, twofold of these, the dark mistakes I see. Please listen now to your brother, Herbert. Inside our mind we sing and hum, and the spell keeping us invisible reaches its peak. The art's energy flows unrestrained, and I barely feel it draining away my energy. It does not take long for our mark to arrive. The fireman. He enters every store in town one by one. We let him to it for a while until he stops outside, stops and scratches his head, lost in thought. Before Caddy says it, I'm already getting up and climbing down. He's distracted. He won't notice us now. Invisible by the eye's magic and with quiet footsteps, we sneak through the streets. He's too lost in his thoughts to notice we're no more than 15 feet away from him. Up next, he goes to the sweet place, the one where the wolf with blessed hands works the bones to one before us would beg mom and dad to get for him. Later, he visits a man with hidden eyes who makes the quick kill arrows Caddy likes, where a teacher is staying. Caddy doesn't want a teacher to know we're here. It'll be more convincing this way. Wherever he goes, the firemen ask the same questions. Do you know where Kagan is? They don't. Have you seen him today then? No. In that case, when did you last see him? The festival, of course, but the fireman wasn't out investigating then. That'll throw him off for a bit. If we were planning something repulsible, as he suspects we are, we wouldn't have taken that risk. You were just having fun with our boyfriend. Nothing wrong with that. I can feel Kagan's smile. It breaks the threshold and paints itself on my face. You were spot on with your guesses. Of course I was. I just look at him, or better yet, notice his scent. He smells like a tower of all sorts of food consolidated into indigestion. The man's a glutton, Caddy. There was no way he was going to chase us around during the games. He was too busy eating himself into a coma. The fist on his side freeze, and for a moment I feel there are hundreds and hundreds of eyes shining like suns at me. Very good. Any other insight on him? I stopped my hearing. He's now gone inside another shop and is boring the people there about his childhood on the island. It's always the same with him. Same stories, same words, even the tone of voice. He has the whole monologue all rehearsed. He's only pretending to be stupid with all that talk about growing up on an island. He cuts that short as soon as people get distracted and start saying more than they should. But it's not like he's lying. I bet he did grow up on an island. I sneak closer and look over the corner. And it was a city place, with the way he grimaces whenever people start poking him about it. Caddy never pays attention to people like this. He's so silly sometimes with all those complicated thoughts and mashing his little fists together when it's all plain to see on their faces. Do you think there's something more to it? This island, absolutely. He's given away a fragment of the truth because despite all the bitterness, sometimes there's this fondness in his voice. Like he's remembering something important to him, which he locked up in that furnace he has for a heart. If we ever get the chance, we should poke him out. We should poke him about it. I bet he'd hate it. That would give it away that we know too much, but perhaps. New fists form in his mind, and I've never seen sharper teeth. I'm putting together a picture of him. What else can you catch? He had this giant, squeezable nose to notice the stench surrounding the fireman. It's acid, but not like when he first entered where we and Hector sat together, or like the furious smoke that clung to him after burning the haze leaf. He had sex recently, last night, I reckon, because he still smelled like it. And there was a lot of drool involved. His clothes are reeking of the stuff and cum. What a weirdo. He doesn't take his shirt off doing sex. Now he's just fucking around. No way, I'm serious. I really am, but I can't help having a little laugh. That's enough. Let's move to the next spot and prepare things. I think the plan will work. The fireman's steps leave behind burning imprints of memories. The earth takes his shape and it remembers a faraway place where the compulsions of tugging his tabard and cleaning wet spots with a handkerchief were instilled in him. The earth also remembered Hector for a time, but as traces of him began to fade, first from the earth, then from our mind, we shaped wood into him instead. I looked for him in the bustling footprints that would appear in the town every morning, in the grass, in the forest, in the lonesome branches that had their fruit stolen, and in the trails left behind by the messengers. And when he could no longer be found around me, I searched for him in the burn marks within me. I was kneeling about to submerge myself in this side forever when he pulled me away. Why did he pull me away? And just when we sitting by the riverbed could have lasted forever, why did he vanish from the footprints, the grass, the lonesome branches, and all else? Well, now I know, and now when I remembers him too. But there's no point if the fireman, with his flaming holy emissions, burns us or the town to ashes. As if known better, the thought of the amphitheater makes a knot form in my throat, but it's as Caddy like says, but it's as Caddy like saying, it's no use to cry over spoiled milk. Hector's mine. He's my plaything. He's what I adore the most. He's next to me in the waters of reflection. I can't tell the difference between his black and white and mine. I won't let him vanish again. So I worry once again about the fireman's tugging of his tabard and the red spots. I find his stomach much more interesting than the contents of his skull. However, Caddy once more swims to the surface, demanding my attention. We sneak away, the wind blowing away from the firemen all the while, and heading to the town's border to an inconspicuous bush hidden in the forest behind Trace's farm. There awaits us a stone I left there the day before, a room carved in it. The fireman appears in the path leading to the farm, Moments later, once more that unspeakable presence flows through me into the stone in front of the farm. Tracer would then hear a bird song, one she knows by heart. She knows what's next as we vanish, taking the stone with us. The fireman stops dead in his tracks when a blood-curdling scream cuts through the landscape. Motherfucker! He stays there. He stays still for a second, face frozen and indifferent, but lost in thought. His legs tense, but he does not burst into a sprint, and chooses instead a brisk walk towards the source of the sound. It comes from the back, past the houses, and a sorry collection of wilting crops. From afar, the fireman sees Tracer with a foot on the fence of her property, yelling at an embarrassed wolf on the other side. Look at what you've done. You ruined us all. From the corner of her eye, Tracer sees the fireman. And you, don't even start with your fucking crescent in those stories. You dishonest prick. You get all presses with that inbred Duke's Hazley pats, but look at this. From among the rows of oats sticks out a single purple waddling figure. Once tall and proud, its leaves have become infected with purple stains, and its stem has begun to decay, making it look as though it's crouching. The eye's arteries have grown around it, beginning to pump their splitting substance, but not quite enough of it to grow into their full terror. But its presence grows indeed. It's not just one eye. Sometimes a vibration reaches us through the soil from some remote place. Many of them are from the west, from where Hector comes, and many more in the Lion and Dragon kingdoms, and many, many more from what Kakan theorizes are either colonies or trading partners. It's faint now, but it is the same encroaching sensation I felt back in the time we sat in the dark and the people with many eyes touched our foreheads, subjects searching for their master. Even Sawyer state. It seems Tracer's neighbor had been in the middle of trying to get rid of his own rotten fingers when the woofers noticed what had happened. I keep telling you to stop using that shit. I don't care if you don't meet quotas. For years, we've been getting more and more haze leaf all over the fields. The fireman blinks, his mouth ever so slightly open as he tries to process what's happening. When a mad noble gets into his mind, there's a demon out and about. Y'all pull out all the theatrics and you do your investigations. But what about this? Do we have to wait for it to become Valley Hazeleaf? Do people have to get sick before you'll do something? Wait, go back. This has been happening since. Tracer pauses for an instant to slow down her breathing, as well as a rhythm with which her shoulders rise and fall. She then points to her neighbors, crops or rather, at a stake pierced to the earth. Years. It wasn't like this when I was a child, but ever since people started using those earth helpers, our fields have been getting covered in this stuff. You listen to me now. I don't believe for a second that travesty in the amphitheater was some demon or what have you. I don't know how, but the Duke did something to spread haze leaf all over the place. Your answer will be in those machines he's been peddling. He's trying to drive us out, murder us, like he's been doing with those useless expeditions to the valley. The fireman barely moves. His gaze suits to a neighbor who at this point is shaking like a leaf. He gives the man the smallest nod, a suggestion of perhaps a command for him to get away. Then he turns to Tracer. He's wider, taller, stronger, but she stands her ground as if none of that mattered. The fireman lets the silence linger, staring her down, but even then Tracer does not break. He scoffs and looks away. Perhaps he thinks her a hysterical mother, or, more charitably, he jokes to himself about what motherhood does to a woman. But he doesn't know Tracer, doesn't know what she's capable of. He climbs over the fence and takes a look at the earth helper this day. That's right, it's supposed to improve the crops to protect them from rain, the cold, and disease. But believe me, it wounds a sower. It's like making a deal with the devil. Give it 2 or 3 more years, and we'll have a horrible famine when the damage becomes 2 months all at once. Mark my fucking words. Alright, I'll investigate this hazily, but that'll have to wait until later. I came here to ask you some questions. The fireman realizes he let himself be caught off guard. He once again puts on that sarcastic smile of his, hiding his hands behind his back, and with both a literal and metaphorical fence between him and Tracer, he resumes what he came here to do. You see, it's about Kagan. I need to have a chat with him. Nothing serious, it's just that he's a peacekeeper and I figured he knows something. Tracer's expression remained ever so slightly indignant, even more indignated, but there's a minimal self in her eyes, one that I'm sure neither the other me, nor the fireman perceive. If Caddy hadn't briefed her, she wouldn't trust a single word this man says. You and him being friends, I thought you know his whereabouts. Have you seen him today? Can't say I have. You have to forgive me, but I can't just go out of town. I can't just go out to town on a whim. I have 3 pups who need me. Understandable. In that case, can you tell me when was the last time you saw him? I saw him during the games 2 days ago, but that's it. She brings a hand to her chin, thinking. Have you checked the bakery back in town? They get their lumber from them. They haven't heard from him since before the games. How about Orwell's Nest? The owner of the place often has him over. He's the place's official bouncer. He was there last morning, and that is his last known location. Now she adds a hint of worry to her tone. What about his place? I went there 3 times yesterday, and there was no one. She stares hard into the ground, and all of a sudden hits her forehead with the indignation of somebody who just remembered something too obvious to have forgotten it in the first place. Well, let me be honest, Kagan isn't exactly rich. You probably figured that out from looking at his sack. He doesn't have the money to just stop working on a whim. So if he's not delivering his lumber and he's not earning his keep as a peacekeeper, there's this lion working for the Duke. His name is Ricardo. I know he and Kagan have done some projects together. That is, he pays Kagan to help with his research. Sometimes that involves venturing into the valley too, so it would explain things. Maybe you should check up with him. He ought to know something. The fireman is not surprised in the least by the mention of that familiar name. Why, it is perfectly natural, but he still goes through the trouble of opening his arms as though struck by a massive realization. Ooh, of course that explains it. Yes, I talked to Ricardo. I should have thought of it sooner. He has many whiskey jobs, that man. Well, we need to earn our living somehow, don't we? Besides, you'll want to talk. Oh, I do this for pleasure. And besides, I assure you, I'm never the one in danger. Well, time to arrange another encounter with Ricardo post-haste. Once the fireman's silhouette disappears down the road back to town and his stench dissipates, Tracer takes a basket and asks her husband to look after the children for a few minutes and goes to the forest with the pretext of collecting berries. She stops near where we hear the birdsong surgical, and after looking around a little, she kneels and begins plucking berries from a bush. The basket is almost filled when she looks above the bush and our gazes meet. She's not startled. I got her a couple of times at first, but nowadays she's always suspecting my tricks. Not that it prevents me from trying. She quickly takes the basket away, knowing well I take a bunch of them and shove them into my mouth. Has she been a split second slower and stands up. There you are. Oh, I see you're finally trying out your new clothes. Look when I pulled apart the blue collar as if sewing off my pecs underneath. Don't I look great? Of course, I made it for you, after all. So, what do you think? You're one hell of an actress, Teresa. Why, thank you. All those years helping with the plays paid off. Do you think he took the bait, though? Mm-hmm. Caddy sits in the air next to me, observing some of his fishes dancing around his claws. They do their usual song and dance, moving around all over the place before returning to their original place and doing it all over again. The information about the Earth Helpers will put Silverwolf in a bind. It's unlikely he'll get any information out of the other wolves. Saying the Duke's family has been spreading demonic corruption is a grave accusation, when I fears him 2 months for that. Not to mention he could make an enemy out of Manuel in the process. Ricardo, however, is of Seiki loyalty to the Duke and well versed in artifacts. As Silverus as sharp as he seems, he'll easily figure out he's his best chance at learning more about the Earth Helpers. Whether it is to pursue us or to investigate the Earth Helpers, he will go to Ricardo. I will focus on Tracer. Ryan, are you talking with him? Yes, Cady says he has no option but to take the bait, basically. What's the next step now? They instruct Ricardo on what to do? No, Cady said he'll play his part perfectly without any coaching. In fact, the question is whether or not Silver has the brain to connect the dots, he thinks. That's the next step of the plan, in fact. What do you mean? With a grin, I raised my hand, and purple fiery tendrils emerged from my fingers. Let's say Cady and I will have a busy night. Alright, so looks like Kagan and Ryan have their roles switched. Obviously, like when like what's her name again? Tracer. She was talking to Ryan, and Ryan was telling her what Kagan is telling him to her. So instead of Ryan being like the demon and Kagan like being in the flesh, Kagan is a demon and Ryan is in the flesh. He also said that Kagan also told Ryan that he didn't want to live a lie anymore. That's the reason why he told Hector that he was a demon. And that dragon, he's really going everywhere, questioning everybody about Kagan. So that act he puts up, that act he plays as this, innocent, friendly type of person, it clearly kind of cracked some. He really glared at Trace's neighbor, essentially signaling him to get back at his house. So I believe this whole, this ad he puts up, this decent person who just want to ask questions, I don't think he's really that nice in reality. But I think he's just being that so he can get the people to ask to answer his questions. When I talk about his past and all that stuff, the same stuff. So apparently, Hector, not Hector, but Kagan and Ryan have a plan to throw the Inquisitor off. So about Hector, the dragon gave him a new job, basically. It's about him studying Dust Viper and was I think he used to save a life, and it was a big deal that he was able to do that. So I think the Inquisitor might have given him a new job more so to keep a closer eye on him more than just the Dust Viper, since he's very close to Kagan. So I think that's the reason why he had the head doctor fire Hector, and so he could give him a job that he knows he'll be able to keep a closer tab on Hector. About the fist, I think I had to look back several times just to see, because it's a little confused for me. So I had to look back several times to see what those fists mean. But I think those fists have something to do with your thoughts. Maybe not just Hector, maybe not just Kagan and Ryan's thoughts, but maybe like the thoughts of the village as a whole, what the fists represent. And that, the fists having sharp teeth and all that may symbolize, somebody's strong passion or strong desire for love. I'm not sure, but that's what I'm thinking. I may be wrong. Alright, so that was Gambit. Thank you all very much for watching. Bye.